While holding my granddaughter in my arms, she threw up on me. I smiled. My wife walked in and said, "That baby knows what garbage feels like." My daughter snorted, "She learns fast." My son-in-law took a picture and said, "That's our family clown." I didn't comment. Rocked her until she slept. This morning my wife called 13 times begging me to undo what I did. After decades of verbal abuse from my wife, daughter, and son-in-law, they went too far by mocking me in front of my infant granddaughter. Now they're learning what happens when the family ATM fights back. Throw away for obvious reasons. Names changed, but the pain is real. Look, I'm 59M. No, I'm not perfect. Never claimed to be. I dropped out of college to start my construction business 35 years ago. My hands are calloused, my back is permanently screwed up, and yeah, I've got a bit of a gut these days. But I built something from nothing, provided a good life for my family, and never once complained about working 60-hour weeks so they could have nice things. My wife Wanda, 57F, wasn't always like this. When we got married, she was proud of me. Somewhere around year 15 that changed. Maybe it was when her college friends started getting promotions while her husband still came home with dirt under his fingernails. Maybe it was when her sister married a dentist. All I know is she started making these little comments. At first they were kind of jokes, you know, "Oh Heath, you're tracking mud again." Typical construction guy. Small stuff. But over time it got worse. Way worse. 3 years ago our daughter Malia, 32F, and her husband Patrick, 34M, were struggling to find a place. Housing market is insane here. I own a rental property that honestly makes good money, but family comes first, right? So I let them move in at less than half the market rate. Patrick works in tech. Something with computers, he explains it and my eyes glaze over. Malia does marketing stuff. They both make decent money but act like they're broke all the damn time. For the past 3 years I've been charging them $1,950 a month for a place that should get $2,200. Fixing everything myself whenever something breaks. Paying for their streaming services because they use our logins. Covering their car insurance, added to our policy temporarily 3 years ago. Watching their baby Aaliyah, 8 months, for free multiple times a week. And what do I get in return? Constant disrespect. At Christmas Patrick asked if I knew how to use a smartphone in front of everyone. I've had the same Samsung for 4 years and run my entire business. When I mentioned this he said, "Wow, impressive for someone who still writes checks at the grocery store." Everyone laughed. I didn't. Wanda makes these comments at dinner about how I embarrass her in restaurants because I don't know which fork to use. We grew up poor. Sorry I missed the fancy fork lessons. Last month at a family barbecue I overheard her telling her sister that Heath's the perfect example of what happens when you peak in high school. I lettered in football and wrestling. Apparently that's something to be ashamed of now. Malia is becoming her mother's mini-me. Last week I fixed their dishwasher, saved them a $150 service call. While I was working she started telling Aaliyah, "This is why we want you to go to college, so you don't have to crawl around on floors when you're grandpa's age." I just kept working. 2 days ago was what broke me. I was watching Aaliyah while they all went out to some wine tasting. I love that little girl more than anything. She's the only person in that house who lights up when she sees me. I was holding her after her bottle, just rocking and talking to her. Nothing special, just grandpa stuff. She got fussy and then threw up all over my shirt. Normal baby stuff, right? I smiled at her and told her it was okay. Started cleaning us both up. That's when they all walked in early from their wine thing. Instead of helping, Wanda looked at me and said that the baby knows what garbage feels like. Those exact words. My own wife. Malia snorted and said she learns fast. Then Patrick took out his phone, snapped a picture, and said, "That's our family clown right there," like I was some kind of joke. I didn't say anything. Just kept cleaning up the baby. Rocked her until she fell asleep, put her in her crib and went home. Wanda came home about an hour later already complaining about something else, not even acknowledging what had happened. That night I couldn't sleep. Kept seeing their faces, hearing those words, "The baby knows what garbage feels like." 35 years of marriage, 1 daughter, a granddaughter I adore, and that's how they see me. The family garbage. The family clown. So yesterday morning, while Wanda was at her yoga class, I made some calls. Important calls. Long overdue calls. See, what my family doesn't understand is that while I might not know which fork to use at a fancy restaurant, I know exactly how money works. I know who pays for what in this family. I know about Patrick's online gambling habit that he thinks nobody knows about. Dude uses our home Wi-Fi network and I check the router logs. I know about Wanda's secret credit card that's almost maxed out. I know exactly how financially dependent they all are on good old dumb Heath. By the time I finished those calls, I felt calm for the first time in years. I went to the garage, cracked open a beer, and waited for the storm. This morning my phone started ringing at 6:43 a.m. It was Wanda, then Malia, then Patrick, then Wanda again. 13 calls total while I sat there drinking my coffee watching the sunrise. 13 increasingly desperate voicemails. I still haven't called them back. You spend decades being someone's doormat and they forget you can stand up anytime you want. They're about to remember. Update 1. First, thanks for all the support. NGL waking up to thousands of notifications was wild. Some of you asked if I was karma farming. I wish. This is unfortunately my real life. Where we left off, my family mocked me in front of my granddaughter, calling me garbage and the family clown. I made some calls and then ignored 13 increasingly desperate phone calls from them the next morning. So what did I actually do? Let me break it down. For years I've been the family bank. Most of my income goes towards supporting people who apparently think I'm worth less than the dirt under their fingernails. I'd been planning to retire in 3 years, but that would require their cooperation. After the garbage incident, I decided my retirement was starting immediately, at least from being their ATM. Remember how I mentioned Patrick's gambling habit? It's worse than I initially let on. Dude has blown through about $65,000 in the past 2 years on sports betting apps and poker sites. He thinks he's slick using private browsing, but the router logs don't lie, and neither do the collection notices I've seen in their mail when I stop by to fix things. Malia has no idea. Patrick's been intercepting the mail and hiding notifications. As for Wanda, my darling wife of 35 years has a shopping addiction. 3 secret credit cards that I discovered when a statement accidentally got sent to our home address instead of her sister's place where she has them delivered. She's currently sitting on $42,000 in debt that I supposedly know nothing about. Designer bags, jewelry, clothes, all while telling me we need to budget better when I buy new work boots. My plan wasn't about revenge. It was about reality. First call, my attorney. Set up a consultation for later that day to discuss protecting my assets. Second call, property management company. Inform them that effective immediately the rental rate for Malia and Patrick's house would be adjusted to market value, $2,200 a month instead of $950. Formal notice would be delivered within 48 hours. Third call, my bank. Started the process of separating accounts and securing my savings. Fourth call, insurance company. Removed Patrick and Malia's vehicles from our policy. Fifth call, accountant. Discussed restructuring my business to protect my retirement funds. By noon the framework was in place. I wasn't being vindictive. I was simply stopping the endless flow of my money into their hands. Stopping the financial support of people who see me as garbage. Then I went home and waited. Wanda came back from yoga around 1 p.m. She acted normal at first, complaining about some woman at class wearing inappropriate leggings. I sat at the kitchen table scrolling through my phone, barely responding. Then her phone pinged with a notification. My attorney had sent her an email CCing me confirming our appointment to discuss financial restructuring and potential separation of assets. Her face went from annoyed to pale in about 3 seconds. She started with the questions. What was this about? Was I seeing someone else? Had I lost my mind? I kept my responses short. No, I wasn't cheating. No, I hadn't lost my mind. In fact, I'd finally found it. She switched tactics, going from angry to sweet in an instant. Suddenly I was honey and sweetheart instead of the family garbage. I just kept eating my sandwich. Around 3 p.m. my phone exploded with texts from Malia. The property management company had called, the scheduled delivery of the rent increase notice. She wanted to know if this was some kind of mistake. I texted back one word. No. 10 minutes later Patrick was calling. I let it go to voicemail. He left 4 messages, each one more desperate than the last. In the final one his voice actually cracked when he asked if I could at least give them some time to figure things out. By dinner time Wanda was in full panic mode. She'd checked our joint accounts and seen that I'd moved most of the money out, leaving just enough to cover regular bills. She started crying saying she didn't understand what had gotten into me. I reminded her about the garbage comment. She tried to play it off as a joke saying I was being too sensitive. That's when I showed her the printouts of her secret credit card statement. The look on her face was like watching someone see a ghost. She sat down hard on the kitchen chair, mouth opening and closing like a fish. For once in our marriage Wanda had absolutely nothing to say. I slept in the spare room that night, not because she asked me to, because I couldn't stand to be near her. My phone kept buzzing with notifications. I put it on silent. The next morning I met with my attorney. We spent 2 hours going over options, not necessarily divorce but certainly protection. He advised documenting everything, which I'd already started doing, every nasty comment, every financial deception, all of it. I got home to find Malia sitting in our driveway. Aaliyah was in her car seat in the back. That was low, using my granddaughter as a prop. I almost caved when I saw that little face, but then I remembered them laughing while I was covered in baby vomit. Malia tried the waterworks first. When that didn't work she switched to anger. How could I do this to them? They'd never make next month's rent at the new rate. They'd have to move. Did I want my granddaughter living in some sketchy apartment because her grandfather was having a midlife crisis? I looked her in the eye and asked if she knew about Patrick's gambling. The way her face changed told me everything. She had no idea. I suggested she ask him about the $65,000 before worrying about next month's rent. She left in tears but not before I kissed Aaliyah goodbye. That part was hard. Really hard. By the end of the week things had escalated. Patrick showed up at my workplace causing a scene. He swung between begging and threatening, saying he'd make sure I never saw Aaliyah again if I didn't back off. I recorded the whole thing on my phone just in case. Wanda moved in with her sister temporarily after I refused to budge on the financial changes. Before she left she tried one last manipulation tactic, asking if 35 years of marriage meant nothing to me. I asked her the same question. It's been 2 weeks now. The formal notices have all been delivered. My attorney has drafted legal documents protecting my assets. The property management company confirms Malia and Patrick haven't paid the new rent amount yet. Last night I was sitting on my deck alone drinking a beer when a notification popped up on my phone. Patrick had tagged me in a social media post. That picture of me covered in baby vomit with a long rant about ungrateful boomer parents who abandoned their families. It had 0 likes and 3 comments telling him to take it down. This morning I woke up to a text from Malia, just 2 words, "We need to talk." I'm meeting her for coffee tomorrow without Patrick. She says she found something on their shared computer that I need to see. I don't know what's coming next. Part of me feels guilty especially about Aaliyah, but you know what feels better than guilt? Self-respect. For the first time in decades I'm not a doormat. I'm not garbage. I'm not a clown. I'm just a man who finally decided his dignity was worth fighting for. Final update. Something strange happens when you finally stop giving a damn what people think of you. It's like a superpower. For 6 decades I worried about being liked. Now I sleep like a baby. When I left off I was about to meet Malia for coffee without Patrick. She said she'd found something on their computer I needed to see. That coffee shop meeting was just the beginning of their nightmare and my liberation. Malia showed up looking like absolute hell, unwashed hair, bloodshot eyes, wearing the same hoodie she'd had since college. No wedding ring. She pushed her laptop toward me without a word. What I saw confirmed everything and worse. Patrick's gambling debts weren't $65,000. They were $112,000. He'd taken out loans against their car, maxed out 7 credit cards, and this is where I nearly lost it, had been borrowing from Malia's college fund that Malia's grandparents had set up. But that wasn't all. Emails to some woman named Dolores going back 18 months. Graphic. Food. Hotel receipts. Pictures I wish I could unsee. The best part? Patrick had apparently been using my Wi-Fi to send these emails whenever they visited my house, while I was fixing their garbage disposal or babysitting their kid for free. Malia wasn't crying. She was beyond tears. She asked if she and Aaliyah could stay with me temporarily. I agreed, with conditions. This wasn't going to be another situation where Daddy fixes everything. What I didn't tell her was what else I'd already done. Remember those calls I mentioned? After meeting with my attorney, I'd moved 90% of my assets into protected accounts and trusts. But I'd also made some other calls, to Patrick's parents, to his boss, to the guy who runs the Thursday night poker game. I told them everything with the receipts. His parents were horrified. His boss was concerned about judgment issues. The poker buddies kicked him out of their game. All within 48 hours. I also compiled every nasty text, email, and comment my family had made about me over the years. Screenshots, recordings, the works. Put it all in a shared folder and sent it to Wanda's sister, her parents, and her closest friends with a simple message. This is how my family has treated me for years. Now I'm done. The text started rolling in immediately. Wanda's sister called her disgusting. Her mother was ashamed. Her best friend since college said she didn't recognize the person in these messages. By the end of the week, Wanda had no one to stay with. Her sister kicked her out. She called me 13 more times, each message more desperate than the last. Meanwhile, Patrick was spiraling. His buddy Xavier kicked him out after 3 days when Patrick couldn't chip in for beer. No family to turn to. No friends willing to help. Credit cards maxed. Accounts emptied. He showed up at my house at midnight, pounding on the door, clearly drunk. Started screaming about seeing his daughter. I didn't even open the door. Just called the cops through my new security app and recorded the whole meltdown on my doorbell camera. They found cocaine in his car. Not my problem. Malia filed for emergency custody the next day. 2 weeks in, Wanda finally cornered me at the grocery store, followed me around the produce section begging for just 5 minutes to explain. I grabbed my phone, hit record, and said go ahead. She broke down right there between the apples and the zucchini. Said all the things you'd expect. She was sorry, she'd been horrible, she didn't know why she'd changed. The usual. I just looked at her and asked if she remembered calling me garbage in front of our granddaughter. Asked if she remembered laughing while Patrick took that photo. Asked if she remembered 35 years of little cuts. Then I walked away with my cart. Left her standing there sobbing. 3 different people recorded it on their phones. It was on local social media by dinner time. Was it petty? Absolutely. Did it feel amazing? You bet your ass it did. A month in and the real consequences started showing. The property management company initiated eviction proceedings when Patrick and Malia missed the second rent payment. Their credit scores tanked. Patrick couldn't get approved for a student apartment in the worst part of town. Wanda discovered that living on her own actual income was challenging. Her expensive yoga studio membership, gone. Her weekly salon appointments, canceled. Her luxury SUV, repossessed. She had to get a roommate at 57. Started working extra shifts to make ends meet. For the first time in their adult lives, they were experiencing the real world without Heath's safety net. Malia was the only one showing actual growth. She got a second job, started therapy, filed for divorce, cut up her credit cards. When she tried to thank me for letting her stay, I reminded her that it wasn't charity. She was paying reduced rent and helping with household chores. No more freeloading. 3 months after the incident, I agreed to meet with all of them together. My house, my terms. They showed up looking like shadows of their former selves. Wanda had gained weight and stopped coloring her hair. Patrick had lost at least 20 pounds and couldn't stop fidgeting. Malia stood apart from both of them. I laid out my terms clearly. I would consider helping Malia and Aaliyah get back on their feet with a formal repayment plan for any assistance. Patrick would need to complete gambling addiction treatment, get a steady job, and pay child support before having unsupervised visits with Aaliyah. Wanda and I would remain separated. Any reconciliation would require intensive couple therapy, a postnuptial agreement, and separate finances indefinitely. No one, absolutely no one, would ever disrespect me again. One strike and they're permanently out of my life. There were tears, arguments, begging, but in the end they all agreed. Not because they wanted to, because they had no choice. 6 months have passed since then. Where are we now? Malia and Aaliyah moved into a small apartment last month. She's managing on her own with minimal help from me, just occasional babysitting and a small loan that she's actually repaying on schedule. Patrick completed 30 days of inpatient treatment and found a job delivering packages. He sees Aaliyah twice a week with supervision. He still looks at me like I might end his existence with a phone call. Wanda and I have had exactly 6 counseling sessions. Progress is slow. We're not living together. I'm not sure we ever will again. The counselor says I have unresolved anger. No kidding. Yesterday was Aaliyah's first birthday. Small celebration at Malia's new place. Everyone on their best behavior. No snarky comments, no eye rolling. Just awkward politeness and genuine love for that little girl. At one point I was holding Aaliyah when she threw up on my shirt again. The room went dead silent. Everyone froze. Eyes darting between me and the baby. I smiled at her, told her it was okay, and started cleaning us both up. No one said a word. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. That's when I looked up at all of them, my family who had treated me like garbage for years, and said, "Anyone want to make a comment about this? Anyone at all?" They all looked at the floor. Patrick literally backed away. Wanda busied herself with napkins. Malia shook her head quickly. That's when I knew I had won. Completely and totally. Is this story over? Hell no. Families are complicated. But the old dynamic is dead forever. My family now understands a fundamental truth. I am not to be taken for granted. I am not an ATM. I am not a joke. Sometimes the best revenge isn't some elaborate scheme. It's simply letting people face the consequences of their actions while you watch from a comfortable distance with a cold beer and a fully funded retirement account they can't touch. Yeah, pura script hi, bilkul same narration, surf clean kiya gaya voiceover kuliya. Agar chot sections main shahi, Jay's intro, update 1, final update alag-alag, Yakoi specific part shorten karna hai to batadina.